Ahoy, you salty sailors. Time to raise anchor and set sail for your best scrawny life. Arr! Alright, sorry, there will not be any plants, any fishing, or any mushrooms in this episode. It's pretty much shut down for the season. It got cold, it stayed really dry and got cold fast. And then it warmed up a bit, then it got cold again, and then it got really cold, but then it was warm, and then because Iowa, and yeah. So this episode will be all about art, and we'll start things off with some digital painting in Adobe Photoshop. As you can see, I've laid out a sketch layer and dropped a gradient background for the sky on a different layer. Later on, we will add some strokes of complementary colors to that sky and blend it and smooth it out, move it around a little bit to develop that broken color sort of effect. But for now, we just need to be able to sample with our eyedropper tool some of those colors that will help us build the color movements for the basic background shapes, the hills and so forth in the background. And by color movement, I mean just the way that the color changes from one end of the shape to the next. And of course the rhythm of brush strokes helps to also suggest, in this case, grasses or plants of some sort. And of course we're generally following the rule of thirds type of setup here, where the figures are clustered together in the lower left hand third, but they're gesturing toward the upper right hand third. And in the final painting there will be clouds in that right hand convergence area that the figures are gesturing toward, sort of hoping to end up with something that has kind of a Hayao Miyazaki type feel to it. So we're smoothing out some of those shapes in the far distance. But basically all I'm looking to establish right now is just the color movement. And since it's a complementary color scheme, it will be a little more yellow or orange on the side towards the light source, and a little more purple or blue on the side of the hill, in this case, away from the light source. And the movement of value is also going to follow this pattern of being a little darker on the side of the hill or the slope that's away from the light source. So we're just for the moment trying to establish those movements of color and value in the shapes, in the background shapes. Later on we'll come and add just a few plants or whatever you might have in sharp detail, and that will just sort of bring that whole area to life. And the same with these fence posts and so forth. We're just setting up the movements of light and shadow. That and later on we'll just pick out a few details that will bring those objects to life. Now this barbed wire fence, it will be a little more tricky, but we'll see how we go. Maybe I'll change that to a wooden fence or something at some point, but we'll see how it develops. So let's jump into a little comic book style drawing. I was catching up on some MMA stuff that had happened over the summer, and I watched an interview with Francis Ngannou, and decided while I was watching it that I would like to try it to draw him in the cartoon style, the comic book style, one color drawing, which would be like an inside page. So I snapped a reference photo with my phone, and I'm just sketching from that. So there's the sketch layer complete. And I think I had, right from the beginning, I think I had the eyeballs still a little different size. You gotta copy and paste them like they always say if you want them to be perfect. But it's close, it's pretty close. So now we'll put a little bit of shading, kind of establishing the flow of light and shadow in this drawing. Now that we have the basic shape sketched out. Then we'll block in the large shadow areas and give the shading lines after that. So there we've got enough of the shadow established, and we're going to start moving to full black with the shading lines. These shading lines will extend from an area of shadow toward the light source, and they will get thinner as they do so. So, and of course you don't want to have shading lines coming out of a cast shadow. So the shadow under the nose there does not have shading lines, but in the forehead and so forth, where there's a value transition, there will be shading lines. Now you'll notice here I turned the image upside down and across the vertical axis as well, just to help spot anything that's out of proportion. Like I said already, I think I had the eyes just a little off, but they look pretty close. So here's the thing, you saw me make a couple lines and then erase them. It's sort of difficult to express skin tones, especially when you're dealing with a darker toned person, when you're doing simply a one color drawing. It doesn't always read correctly as the right skin tone that you want. So I tried a few shading lines and so forth, but eventually decided to just block in this large shadow to get the right, to make the tone read correctly. And someone who's just brilliant at this, of course, is David Finch, if you want to check out his YouTube channel. And he not only tones, but textures. It's amazing what he does with just a single color. But there you have it. It's pretty close. Like I said, I think the eyeballs are just slightly off. They're slightly different sizes. The mouth is a little off, but it looks all right. Sort of a gentle giant type of look on that one. So I decided to do one with a lot more visual drama. I mean, of course, the comic book style, always there's just a lot of visual drama that's built into that. So I decided to try that look. Started out with a full torso, but you'll see here pretty shortly I decided to crop that down to just a bust, because I knew we'd be running out of time by this point in the video. But for now, started off with a sketch, same as before, and we're just blocking in some of the light and shadow. Once I've got that established to a satisfactory degree, I'll give that a color and make that my sketch layer, and then begin developing the full black with the shading lines on top of that. So there you can see I've cropped it down to just a bust, beginning to drop in the actual drawing itself. Give that a color so it's less distracting. So we're blocking in all the shadows here first. Complete black. Yeah, it's quite difficult to express, especially textures and so forth, with it's not a contone image. It's just it's a line art image. But David Finch is a real master of it. He just produces some incredible stuff. So definitely a YouTube channel worth checking out. So here, you can see again the shading lines extending from the shadow toward the light source, getting thinner as they do. And you want to add just some changes to it, some changes in the line weight, and also just some changes to the shape, just to add that visual drama. And I'm going for texturally, I'm going for maybe the look of some drops of some beads of sweat on the face. So I'm just throwing in these little circles every once in a while. Circles and sort of zigzags and so forth. And that's just builds that visual drama. Which, yeah, that's the classic cartoon look, just really ramped up and very visually dramatic. So I think in the next episode, I need to build some better assets for the channel, such as an intro and some good transitions and so forth. We might look into just how that's done in Adobe After Effects. Not an expert with it, still learning quite a bit every time I use it, so maybe have a look at some of that sort of thing, maybe build a little intro or something in the next one. Of course, we have our painting that we started. We'll do a couple more episodes of that, so we'll have a session of that in the next one. And we might do some animation. Of course, I'm a lot more used to keyframe animation with a fully rigged out 3D model and so forth. Frame by frame, I've never actually attempted it. So maybe we'll jump into get our feet wet on something like that in the next episode. So it'll just be at a frenzied pace as always, I'm sure. So establishing again with the visual drama, we're establishing a complementary color scheme, your classic movie poster type of blue and orange color scheme, and then we're just going to soften where the two colors meet along the lips there, but otherwise we're going to drop in some dodge and burn here to pop the highlights a little bit. And there you have it, the high drama look. If we put a background behind this, I mean, at this point I'm just inventing a story and a character, but why not just have some arcs of electricity zapping around, because why not? There's just all sorts of strange things going on in whatever neighborhood this is, and at this point I'm just inventing a character and a story on my own, but don't play with electrical junction boxes, and we'll see you on the next one.